Hi, this is Mark News from Plant Talk Radio. Thanks for subscribing and listening to our podcast, Your Gardening Questions from Plant Talk Radio. If you have a gardening question you'd like our host Fred Howard to answer, send him an email. The email address is fred@planttalkradio.com. Now for today's question. Back to Plant Talk. Again, the Columbia Equipment toll-free number 1-866-PLANT-TALK with 2 T's. If you have a question or comment from Fred. And you can always email Fred a question as well. It's fred@planttalkradio.com. Or just check out our website, planttalkradio.com, and click on the Ask Fred button. And Greg sent it a question this week.
All right.
And Greg's got a problem. He has a big clump of button roses in his front yard. But right in the middle of it, growing up, is wild sumac. And he has to cut it out several times a year. And he's wondering, is there some sort of an herbicide that he can use that would target the sumac but then not hurt the roses?
Well, yes, by all means. Now, I don't know that I'm going to try to be specific about the material. However, the procedure that he's been doing has, I'm sure, helped, because anytime you can keep a plant from having foliage, collecting light, making food, you're damaging it, and that's good. Now, my concern for him is that he cannot overspray his roses with an herbicide strong enough to knock out the sumac. So he's going to have to continue, for all practical purposes, the removal, the cutting off of the sumac. Then, given, I'm supposing, 3 weeks, the sumac will start sending up new shoots, new leaves, and so on. At that point, he's going to have to spot kill. And now, exactly how, I'm not sure. It will be a matter of not using something that will atomize the spray, more of a drip. I used to use what I call a plunger type oil can, where I would mix up the material in a separate container, pour it in this little reservoir. Then I would literally drizzle it down the stems, on the leaves, and so on, right in among the roses. And for the most part, either a stronger formula of Roundup, or then into some other brush killers that I'm going to tell him to read labels in the store. But the Roundup, for sure, does not get out into the soil and should not, at least to my knowledge, should not hurt his roses. But it's going to be the tedium of having to kill it. I recommend the same kind of thing with bindweed and a few other things like that. It drives you nuts for a year or two trying to get the patch cleaned up because, they've seeded, bird droppings come in, whatever, and it continues to thrive until you have discouraged foliage long enough that it literally can't feed itself, is a way to put it.
Well, last year you sent me out with one of those little foam paint brushes. Yep. Do you remember that? I had something growing up in my roses, and you said, well, yeah, you can kill it, but, you can't get it on the roses. So, so I'm out there with a paintbrush, and my wife thinks I'm crazy. She thinks I'm painting the weeds, but it worked.
No, Mark, your wife's known you were crazy for a long time. Well,
okay, yeah.
But at the same time, it does work. And the little foam brush, the little drizzle from an oil can, no atomized spray, because that'll blow around. It puts out, we'll call it, some gases, and you could be damaging the roses. But when you concentrate it only on the individual plant you want killed, you will have to repeat probably every month or so all summer long. But your whole game plan is to treat the offender with a weed killer, brush killer that won't allow it to grow. You're cutting it off. Will, of course, do the same thing, but only temporarily. And then you make them sick enough they just up and die. Now, I'm looking at that as, in the case of my having had a bunch of thistles, it was a 2-year process. The first year, quite frequently, and the second year, I think maybe only 3 or possibly 4 times. I don't remember. But at the same time, I just literally let them burn themselves out is what it boiled down to.
Yeah, my wife likes to do crafts. She's really into crafting and all that kind of stuff. So, when her little paintbrushes disappear, she knows what's going on. And I just blame you.
Yeah, right.
I just blame Fred.
Not? Yeah, she doesn't come in often on Saturday morning, so I don't have any fear.
Yeah. Hey, thanks again for listening to our podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our other podcasts as well, the Plant of the Week podcast and the Plant Talk Radio podcast, all on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. If you'd like to sponsor a daily podcast, contact us at fred@planttalkradio.com. To find out more about Fred Hauer and Plant Talk Radio, visit our website, planttalkradio.com.
Circle270media.com